Grade 10, as you know, I'm in a meeting right now, so Ms. Kletter has directed you to this site for you to watch this video and just follow along with everything, and then work quietly and be productive, because if you're not productive during class today, you're going to have a difficult time meeting the deadline of having the completed essay for Friday's class. So it's very important that you refrain from sitting with your buddies and joking around, and you need to really focus today. So we'll get started with the Katya first, and we'll go from there. So as you know, you should have finished the Katya and compare this in your notes. Okay, so at the beginning of a sentence, we always capitalize the first word, and in this case anyway, we have a name here, Vivian Virtuous. Joined the group of 7. Now, since this is a number and it's a singular in terms of syllables, we definitely want to use the written word for that here. So instead of having the number 7, it should be 7 like this. So I'm just going to put that there. And we would have Vivian Virtuous joined the group of 7 7th graders as each member searched for the correct homeroom. That takes care of that sentence. Now we move on to the second sentence. We have when, needs to be capitalized, when everyone had found their appropriate classroom. I'm going to do two things. We have an introductory clause here, so we need a comma that separates it from the rest of the sentence. But before we even do that, we need to go back here and look at this word, everyone. Everyone is a singular pronoun. It means one person, even though it sounds like it's collective. Okay? We need to have an appropriate antecedent, which is here. Since that's singular, we need to have singular here as well. So in other words, the correct answer here would be his or her. Okay, so we would have his or her. And even though it sounds a little clunky or even pretentious or too formal, this is correct. When everyone had found his or her appropriate classroom, comma, the friends found that they had different homerooms, and we end it with a period. So that takes care of how we would do this particular sentence. Take a minute, not even a minute, about 30 seconds to make your changes, because you don't really have that many to do. Again, you want to make sure you have Vivian Virtuous capitalized. Number one reason, Vivian is at the beginning of the sentence, but even more importantly, it's a name. Joined the group of 7 7th graders as each member searched for the correct homeroom. When everyone had found his or her appropriate classroom, comma, the friends found that they had different homerooms. So that takes care of this. So make sure you're good here. Okay, send your notebooks up to the front and place them on the table, and then we will move to the next screen. And since we're working independently, you should be able to move on here, so I'm going to keep on going. So obviously today is Monday, October 20th, and you know the homework is written over there on the board. You see that the straight ace, the new straight ace, is due next Monday. That'll be the last one before the 9 weeks, so you definitely want to get that done on time. Vocab quiz for the Katya list number 5 is this Friday. You have it already. You've had it for a week, so you should just be reviewing these words. There's no reason why everyone in this room can't score 100%. If you score anything less than, an A, shame on you, because that just means you didn't really study as much as you should have. The performance assessment, the Outsiders essay, is also due this Friday by the end of class. If you walk out of here by the end of class on Friday and you haven't submitted the essay, you have lost the privilege of revising it, and you're going to take the score, whatever you get, the first time I score it. So it's important that you work at a very good pace this week, maybe even doing some of this work at home. So I'm going to go over some of the things now, and then you'll have time to begin to work. So pay attention to what I'm saying. Okay, so here's a copy of the essay, and this is on Schoology. Okay, so you can download it there and go back and read through it, but I'm going to read through it with you here. It says that the performance assessment for the Outsiders requires you to consider the big question, and I talked about this last week, for the unit, does every conflict have a winner? Several conflicts arise between and among the characters in the novel, but one of the most important is the conflict between the Greasers and the Socias. As a result of this rivalry, people are seriously injured, even killed. So here's what you need to do. You need to consider, how does the big question apply to this conflict? In other words, is there a winner? Okay, you're going to compose a logically organized, in this case it's going to be 4-paragraph essay, in which you explain your response to the big question. You must provide 2 specific examples from the novel to support your position, In addition to stating these examples, you must also explain how or why they work as evidence for your answer. This is the key component of the essay, so it must not be overlooked. Be sure to include transition sentences between paragraphs to connect your ideas. Also on Schoology, there is a folder under your class period that says something like Language Arts Essay or Outsiders Essay Resources. There will be things posted in there. There's a couple actually in there now to help you become successful or experience success with this essay. So you really should consult that for additional information. So, what are you doing today? You're required to work through the steps of the writing process and turn in the following items. You're going to brainstorm, and this is done on paper. Okay, not on anything, not electronic. So we're not really using an electronic device today early on, except for we're listening to this video. But to do the essay, you're not really using anything. Evidence of brainstorming, rough draft, handwritten, printed online paper. So you are not word processing your rough draft. You are using a pen or pencil. You're going to have a peer evaluation that will happen on Wednesday, maybe into Thursday. You'll have a final draft typed double-spaced using Google Drive, because people who tried to do it during Pages did not work and weren't successful in uploading it. And then you upload it to Schoology, and this is due by this Friday, the 24th. So that is what is required. Now, let me get into a little bit more details of some things with the essay. So let's go back here. Okay, so today's steps. What are you going to be doing today? Number one, you're going to think about your purpose for writing. Can you explain it in simple terms? What are you going to be writing about? You should be able to explain that to someone who would ask you that question. Step two, considering the method or procedure you will use for planning your essay. This is your brainstorming. Are you going to list your ideas? I recommend outlining by paragraph what you want to include in it. Webbing, that's another possible way to do it. Some source or some process for evaluating, or not evaluating, but for planning your essay. Okay, you will not simply begin to compose. If you do that, it is wrong and it's not acceptable. And I will be asking to see your planning, your brainstorming on Tuesday. If I can't see it, I'm going to ask to see your draft, and when you give me your draft, I'm going to take it, and you won't get it back. You'll have to start from scratch. So you need to plan this out. There's a saying that goes, proper planning prevents poor performance. That is truly evident in writing an essay. So, step one, think about your purpose. Step two, consider the method or procedure you will use for planning your essay. Step three, begin to plan your essay. This is where you are going to begin your brainstorming. The more thorough and thoughtful you are here, the easier it will be to compose your rough draft. So, if you just have 3 things listed on your piece of paper, that's not a thorough and thoughtful planning. You should have some sort of an outline of what information you want. It could be general, and then you use the book to get more specific when you begin to compose. So I would anticipate that most of you would be still planning today, and very few of you, if any, would actually be composing a rough draft. For those people who are all of a sudden ready to compose a rough draft, that would indicate to me that probably your planning wasn't done as thoroughly as possible. So, plan your essay. If you need to get your Outsiders book out of your locker, you may, but you need to bring it to class every day. Step number 4. This is where it will probably happen Tuesday. The beginning of class will be devoted to completely doing this, where you're composing a rough draft on lined paper. This is important. You must write on every other line. If you do not do this, you will have to redo your rough draft. So I will be monitoring and making sure that you are writing on every other line. This will help everyone to make the peer evaluation process easier so people can read. The other thing with your rough draft is it needs to be neat, because you're going to be handing this to one of your classmates and asking that person to read it. If that person can't read your rough draft, how is he or she going to help you to improve it? So, be neat. No excuses. You can't say, well, I have sloppy writing. Slow down and do a good job. So, step 4 again would be to compose the rough draft. Step 5, this will happen more than likely Tuesday at some point, but if your rough draft is completed, consider the following. How many paragraphs do you have? What information is in your introductory paragraph? Is your essay in the present tense, as it should be? Do you have a clear thesis statement?